Hi there, Vibe Gardeners. Welcome to this edition of Vibe Gardening Inform Edition, where I'm going to talk about parsley right here and how I was able to grow it indoor hydroponically, transfer them outdoors, and what I learned from the past about 1 year of being able to plant this indoors, transition outdoors, and what I learned from it. But with that said, here we go. So parsley, it's one of my main goals of planting this year because it's one of my most versatile herbs in that I use. In that I always have a massive jar of parsley, dry parsley from Costco that I will buy because I cook a lot of it with it. So either it be sauteing vegetables, making chicken soup, or any other dishes. It's one of my favorite herbs to use. So this year, what I did was I kind of started indoors hydroponically where I was able to get it to germinate and come to seed fairly quickly. And then I moved it outdoors, which has its own interesting journey to it. So, why don't we start by going to the hydroponic garden and talk about how that worked out compared to planting it from seed in soil. So, this is where it all started. This is where I was able to take these burpees parsley that I got from my local um, Menards or a big box store, and I was able to get these. And then I was able to basically start my germination process with these parsley indoors. It took pretty short amount of time. I would say about like, a couple of days, maybe a week or so, for the parsley to start sprouting up and show signs. I mean, it was one of those easiest things possible. You just drop. I first started with 3 seeds into one pod, and they all came up. So a lot of them became massive, but now I'm able to put one in there one at a time, and they all came up. And so at first I thought, I can just basically take them out of the plastic baskets, which I'll go into in my hydroponic episode. So I was able to take them and put it into the soil of the growing sponge and just let them grow. And it came out pretty well. One of the problem with that though is that um, the growing sponge is still in the soil. So when they're done growing, I have to go in there like a squirrel, digging, looking for my lost nut to try to get those growing sponge out of the soil again before I plant again. So that's the only downside of it. But the germination was pretty dang fast. It came really quickly. Whereas when I started the parsley from seed in soil, it took a long time. And in the comment description section, I will list how long it took in the soil for it to germinate. But it took a long time to come up, significantly longer than I did it with hydroponic. So starting hydroponic might be the way if you want a fast start on your parsley, but in reality, it's not natural, obviously, because hydroponic is really just replacing soil and everything with water. But that's what I did. That's how I got started, and I think the result is pretty good. So the next thing I did was I took those pre-germinated parsley from the hydroponic garden. I took them from their growing sponge and I transplanted it into a rectangular um, pot, kind of like this. The other one I used was a little bit smaller than that, but this is one it already has soil in here to show. So I planted them out in one of these things. And then I put them in front of my west-facing window because I don't have a south-facing window available to me to use. And then I supplemented the lighting of the west-facing window with my grow lights to make sure that they get enough sunlight to be able enough light to be able to grow into maturity correctly. Now, the big thing here is I didn't exactly plan for this to be put outdoors at all. I wanted to be indoor only garden, but then I realized that it just really grew better when I brought it outside. And when I took it outside a little bit for some trial, not really for even hardening off, I noticed that it was just basically getting more vibrant. And the reality is, I didn't see any growth development differences between the parsley that I grew in soil versus the one I started in hydroponic garden. which is kind of interesting because you would think that real soil would probably do better. But the reality is that it wasn't. So once I brought these out, I noticed that, like I said, real sunlight, nothing really competes with real sun. And that's when I decided that I was going to basically harden them off for real and then put them in the ground. So the final destination I chose for these parsley here was I decided to put them in the garden with my tomato and my pepper plants right next to the house. This is where I get most of the rainwater flowing through because of the way the backyard slopes into the house, making it kind of almost like a rain garden. And this really helped give it a plenty of water to work with. But the thing that I did not anticipate was because I started these indoors in November or so, and then I brought them outdoors in the spring to get hardened. It unfortunately tricked these plants into thinking that this is the second year. Parsley is a biennial, which means that it has a 2-year lifespan. First year, it basically produces the leaves, and then the second year, it would, well, you see here, these are seeds that's coming up. So it would flower and bolt is the technical term for it. Bolting is when the plant flowers and seeds. When it does that, it signifies to itself that it's the end of life. And so instead of getting 2 years out of these parsley, because I started them indoors in November, gave them kind of like almost kind of like a first year. And then once I was hardening it, it signaled almost kind of like a mild winter for these guys. And these guys start bolting literally on the first year, which basically gave me only half the lifespan I was expecting. And also due to the fact that I put a pretty tall, about a 3 foot fence, plastic fence up, mesh fence to protect it from bunnies because bunnies really enjoy eating parsley and cilantro. How to protect it from the bunnies. So this fence was probably also not the best choice in that it blocked a lot of sun. So it made it really get leggy, which means it would grow taller than I would want it to. And it basically used the fence as a support, as opposed to supporting itself. So basically, I shortened my harvest with this parsley by having it go from indoor in the winter to outdoor in the spring. And so that's kind of like the growth style. So next year, definitely, I would not start parsley from indoor in the winter to be moved outdoors because I'm cutting my yield in half. So what I'm going to do is if I'm going to do parsley indoors, I'm going to keep it indoors. And if I want it to be outdoors, I'm going to dedicate it with starting off outdoors. That way, I would get 2 years out of it. And another thing I noticed too was I would a lot of time I would over harvest, which obviously would kill the parsley in the inside with hydroponic gardening. So you should never take off more than a third of the leaf mass, which is a mistake I make too often sometimes. So when I do hydroponically indoors this year, I'm definitely going to plant more, enough, so I'm not over harvesting at any given point. And another thing I noticed is that the flower, I don't know what it is about the parsley flowers, but the bumblebee, which is my tank pollinators, they're my main pollinators in my garden, they're not very attracted to the parsley flowers. Instead, they are what I'm getting here is mostly what we see as common house flies in the house that are outdoors. They're the ones pollinating this, and the smaller honeybees. They're the ones that really love to pollinate the parsley. So just keeping this in mind, if you see house flies in your house, now this thing I'm doing now is instead of killing them on site, I'm trying to shoot them outdoors where they belong, so they can help pollinate things like this parsley. Like right now, I have a house fly right now pollinating one of the flowers here. Really just showing that the pollinators here, you're going to get a different set of pollinators with the parsley. So yeah, I would say this year, even though I got half the length of it, I'm very happy with the output what I got this year. So this year, as you can see, I've done parsley, one of my favorite herbs, both indoors and outdoors, both from the dirt, the traditional sense that you see here, as well as hydroponically. And I've really learned quite a few things about how parsley is grown, how to grow them, and I really think I will grow them differently next year. Dedicate outdoor to outdoor, hydroponically indoor to indoor, and try to make sure I'm getting 2 years out of it, as opposed to the short season I'm getting out of it in both indoors and outdoors. And so that's what we're going to do next year going forward. And hope with what I learned, you also learned quite a bit about how to grow parsley and be able to use it for a lot of your cooking, as it is one of the most versatile herbs that you can have in your pantry. So with that said, keep gardening and keep vibing. Let's go.